Oh. Oh, here she is. Regina
Running
Hall.
on CP time, y'all. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, wow.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience and welcome.
Thank
So
you.
happy to have you here. My name is Stacey Wilson-Hunt. I'm a journalist based here in Los Angeles. Very honored to be here to speak to you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I was rushed. I can't walk in heels, so you know I can't. You know I can't run in them.
We're gonna blame the heels. I always do. So before we get to this really charming movie in which you give a really lovely performance and for which you recently won the New York Film Critics Circle Award, which was really exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations. And an Indie Spirit nomination as well, which is very special. And kind of, you don't see a lot of movies like this getting acknowledged, something that is kind of more comedy leaning, which I think is really special. How's that felt to you in the last few months to see this kind of take hold and have traction?
You know, it's great. It's really surprising. I mean, it is a comedy, but I think because it's not broad and there's something that's so human to the comedy and kind of the situations. And, you know, this woman, Lisa, you know, who's kind of surrounded in this like male-dominated world, but still trying to, you know, maintain so much integrity. So I just think there's a, you know, a sweetness and something about very similar to real life.
She reminded me a lot of, I had a lot of service jobs, not like this particularly, but when you do have a good manager looking out for people, it really makes a big difference, especially in a job like that. It's, I think young women often feel sort of shoved aside. So I think you perfectly captured that. But before we get more deeply into that, I would love to know, what was your life like growing up in DC? What were you like as a kid?
You know, I had, you know, my father was an electrician. My mom was a teacher. Very, very normal.
Kept you wanting to study, I assume? Academics focused?
No sisters. Two brothers, and then I had a god brother who was like my brother, so 3 brothers. Very, at that time, Washington was different. It was pre-gentrification, so Washington was predominantly black, so there were a lot of images of people in all walks of life. And then I went to a predominantly white school, lived in a predominantly black neighborhood, had all kinds of friends. So I don't know for that. And we had go-go, which this whole world has been missing out on.
What's go-go?
It's music. It's a music.
Oh, go-go, yeah.
That can't seem to leave Washington. I mean, I feel like there's a few spots in Europe that like go-go, but it can't. It's not like rap. We cannot cross over.
I love that.
Sad.
And I was very excited and pleased to read about your time spent in journalism, and you received a master's at NYU in journalism. Is this true?
I did. Everyone thinks that I went to Tisch.
Right.
You know.
But I applied to the same school and I almost chose that program. So
You
I was
did?
I did. I debated between Columbia and NYU.
Uh-oh.
So
Now y'all heard how she threw that in. I debated between my Ivy League college and
no, NYU's Ivy League too. NYU's absolutely considered the same tier. It's considered absolutely the same
but
level.
It's not
for
Ivy.
sure.
It's not one of the Ivies.
It's
technically.
fancy though. It's fancy. It's fancy. But I was curious, what did you learn at NYU?
That's like saying, "Oh, I went to UCLA." I went to Stanford, but I consider UCLA.
No.
UCLA is a great school. No.
NYU is very prestigious. Like, do not mistake. It's very prestigious.
I loved NYU. Yeah, but I also looked at Columbia's program too. But they had such an incredible print program, and I actually wanted to do long story packages.
Okay.
You know, I like 60 minutes.
So broadcast, more leaning.
Yeah,
okay.
but not anchoring.
Okay.
I wanted to produce the long story.
The field reporting producer, the fancy highbrow stuff.
Oh.
Did you actually pursue
I was
that?
even in Alabama covering the playground. And this playground just opened. And my mother would have been like, "She's so good." Only my mother.
But I could see you doing that work. It's a hard life. It's just as hard as acting in a lot of ways. But what did you learn studying journalism and studying storytelling that you've carried over into your career as an actor? Because there is a lot of overlap, not obvious overlap, but in terms of rigor and studying and practicing. What did you learn there?
Well, you know, going to NYU, it was great. It was years ago, obviously. Journalism has changed so much. But at that time, the integrity of journalism wasn't questioned. There was no internet or social media, so your source of information, the fact checking. People just didn't go and look and then run with the story. And so it felt like there was a book I had read called Democracy in America. And that was the book that actually made me love journalism, because it talked about how our democracy is very connected to the balance of journalism. And as a woman, I thought, what kind of stories we'd be able to tell. And then as a Black woman, like, what truths could you put out? Because the media used to be so respected for truth. And you could see something in print, or you could see something and you would just kind of know. I mean, obviously there are always exceptions, but when that happened, those exceptions happened, it was a big deal, you know what I mean? And there were apologies and mistakes, but it's changed so much because our information sources have expanded.
For better and worse.
For better, yeah, for better and worse. But that's why I liked it so much then, because I just thought it was such a powerful and important medium. And it still is. We still see how important it is.
It is, maybe even more so now because of the assault on truth.
Exactly.
You speak of. And so when did your career veer into the arts and into performing, and did someone encourage you to pursue that, or did you find it on your own?
No, here's the tragic part of the story. No, I was in grad school I really went back to school because my parents were like, you're in New York going to clubs and no one's supporting your dance habit.
It could be very expensive.
Even though I was in school and I was really good, I don't know. School goes by fast and you're like, wait, you want me to get a job? And I just couldn't, I couldn't do it. I was like,
you're among many people who have had the same
but
feelings.
I waitressed.
Waitressing is a great way to learn about yourself.
Yes. And so as a result, they were like, you can stay in New York if you're going to be in school, but not just to be in New York. And so I went back to school for journalism. But then my father had a stroke very suddenly. He had not been sick and he passed away.
So sorry.
And so that really kind of redirected things. One was because my financial stability was gone, and my father and I were very close, and for a long time I would always say, I'm going to see my mom, and then one day an astute journalist made an assumption that my father wasn't present because they never heard me mention him. And so just because, just for any Black man who always they assume he's not present, it was really important for me to be like, I have to start talking about him, because he really was an incredible father and a very present father and loving. It just, at that time, it was too painful of a button to discuss. But he is here in the ethers. But
I'm sure he's very proud of you.
Could have been on the pole, right, Daddy? Could have gone so many ways. Nowadays, that's even changed. You know what I mean? So
I think a lot of that stigma, and also this movie, I think, talks about that. Just because you see a young woman dressed a certain way, I think we all have. I've always been sort of anti the Hooters environment, these types of environments. And what I love about this movie is that it really humanizes each of these women's stories. Each of them is just trying to make money and move on. This isn't her whole life's goal and life's dream.
It's so funny because so did I. And then when I started doing research and actually going to different places, and I started meeting the girls and the people who worked there, and even the people who went, there was one woman, she's like, I can't stand Hooters. She was with her family. She was a Twin Peaks woman with her family. And I said, no. And she said, no, because they get rips in their pantyhose and no one's eating and they have to look at pantyhose with holes. And so she liked Twin Peaks because she said it made her think of camping, and her family loved camping. And as crazy as that seemed, I got it. Mm-hmm. And then I was at Twin Peaks every day eating.
That's very funny.
I had fried pickles.
Where's Twin Peaks?
Well, we actually, I don't know everywhere that it is, but it was in Texas. It's big over there.
Did this precede the Twin Peaks that we know, David Lynch's Twin Peaks, or was it named for?
It's named for these peaks.
Sure, which makes sense. Yeah, but were they inspired by Twin Peaks the show to name?
I don't know, because I don't know how.
I've
long
never
Twin
heard of
Peaks
this.
They're really huge, and we actually were shooting. That was right.
So many double entendres we could be diving into here.
And you don't even need it.
No.
But we actually shot right across the parking lot. Oh, okay. On the same parking lot as the Twin Peaks, and they let us shadow.
Have you heard of Twin Peaks? Okay, yeah. Must be very specific to that area.
Yeah. Nobody else?
No. I think we were all thinking David Lynch when you said that.
Wow. You know it. Oh, you know it. Yeah, I think
so maybe
they're
the
very south.
Okay.
Southern, and she let us trail, and she was the manager. She had everything for the girls.
Oh, I love that.
Because they're 22, they're young girls, and I think sometimes when you grow up, you forget what it's like to be young, and what you're willing to try and experience. I tried to get a job in New York at one of those clubs, those the strip clubs, I guess that's what they're called. I was like the naked people's club, but the strip club, and but not to strip, to cocktail waitress, because I was like, they probably get better tips.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they were like, no, they didn't even hire me. I was
Why?
like 22. I guess I didn't have it. But they wore a uniform, but it was kind of dark, and that's when you could smoke inside. It wasn't ideal, but I just.
Well, healthier to not be around all that smoke, by the way.
Much healthier. And probably, it was a different thing. Twin Peaks did feel very family oriented. And after a while, you don't notice their breasts. It seems weird.
Yeah.
It does, but I really got to.
I think it speaks to, it's sort of like any, you see a movie, and if there's some sort of sexual situation, what's the motivation behind including that sexual situation? Why did the writer choose to include that? And sort of maybe the ethos of family environment. If you feel like there's a good energy behind those environments, then maybe it feels more comfortable.
That's exactly it.
And I think that's what this movie captured too, is that there can be a good intention behind these types of businesses.
Totally. I was there watching the fights, boxing. I went, weekends, and I think too, they're taught, the girls are actually taught to go to the woman first. In a sense of respect that you would want to cater. So if I had a table with a man and a woman, she would be my priority, because if she doesn't like the experience, most likely they won't come back.
She won't let him come back.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was curious, what acting opportunity would you consider your big break? You've been in so many super successful movies, so many franchises, but was there a specific role that you thought, oh, I can actually do this. I can cross over from this other life you almost had and devote yourself to this craft?
I don't know that I thought of it that way. I think I just was always happy to work, I think I probably thought every role was going to be more of a breakout than it actually was. You do a movie and you have 3 lines and you're like, this is it. It's about to go. It's only up from here. And I think the truth is that is what doesn't happen. And then you start to realize that it really is about the work, and it's not about going to some next level. It is except in the quality of what you do. And then you get older, and then that expands, your own, wisdom and what you're able to, what you're able to do and offer to a character. So yeah, I don't know that there's been one. I mean,
when were you able to get into a room more easily? Where you had a rep say, oh, I have Regina Hall, would you like to see her? And then it was a more automatic yes than maybe having to fight your way in.
I remember there was a time where, after Scary Movie, I could get into a room for comedy, but then I couldn't get into a room for drama.
I wondered about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then it was breaking that barrier.
And that wasn't just comedy. That was silly.
Yeah, that was
super silly.
Yeah, it was broad.
In the best way.
Yeah, but then you're right, because then it turned into, but can she do grounded comedy? Right. So it's like a movie will give you something, but then it'll also say, oh, that's what she does.
Sure. Well, Anna Faris had the same experience. I think people saw her as very goofy, and she can do a lot, and she's very nuanced. Her
range is incredible, and she's so varied as an artist. But yes, but then you have to fight this. So then you have to say no to what you are getting offered, so that you don't get stuck there.
And what did you learn from the Wayans about the business? Because I'm sure they were great mentors.
Loved working with them.
Yeah, they seem like great people.
I feel like working with Keenan in Scary Movie, which was my third movie and my first comedy, it really made me feel okay with taking chances, and being unattractive, and when I say that, I mean, he'd be like, whatever you want to do, there's no vanity in comedy, you don't have to worry. And I never would, because of him, I never looked at the monitor, because sometimes I was like, I don't know what face Brenda's making, but I didn't want to see it and somehow edit myself.
Sure, feel self-conscious.
And so even now I still won't look, because now it's for a whole different reason. But I think with him, he just, there was a boldness, there was
sort of their whole brand. I mean, In Living Color really changed what
I was
comedy looked like.
Yes, I had seen I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker.
Oh, right.
I said, did you see Don't Be a Menace?
Yes.
Remember he was like, my Nubian princess, my black. Would you move over and tap that white queen for me? Oh, that was my favorite line in the movie. It was so good. I was like, what is he doing? Oh, it was great.
But he really created almost a new genre, especially for black filmmakers to be able to get silly like that, and also to take control of franchises and to really be the bosses and be the ones hiring. I think
Keenan
he
had a fearlessness to him. And yet he discovered, but he knew comedy no matter who it was. I mean, between Jim Carrey and, Jamie Foxx. I mean, there were so many people on that show of all backgrounds and,
J-Lo.
Oh, J-Lo.
The J-Lo days.
They looked at J-Lo and they were like, get her.
It was a good investment of everyone's time, I think.
Indeed.
So before we get to Support the Girls, I'd love to talk a little bit about Girls Trip, because it has, I was saying backstage, I feel like this movie came out years ago because the impact has been so deep. It was only, a year and a half ago this movie opened. Tell me what it was like to be part of this not only enormous box office hit, but what have you felt as the sort of cultural momentum that you gained as a performer from this movie?
Girls Trip was really a lot of fun. I mean, we really had so much fun shooting it. And so I think the biggest thing that I think I learned, and then the director and the producers, was that, I remember when we were shooting it, my director, we were doing notes and it was before anyone else was attached. And I was like,
this is Malcolm Lee?
This is Malcolm Lee. And I said, I think that it's too, neat. That women aren't as, women, women talk. See, I don't want to say talk like men, but women talk. Right. And so they were like, oh, should we write the word dick? And I was like, we say it.
Write the way we actually speak, right?
Yeah, it's how we speak.
So your issue was mostly with the nuances of the script and the dialogue, sort of like, does this feel real? Is this the way people would actually communicate?
Is it? Yes. And that, and then once everyone came on board, they were like, absolutely. And then it was, would women be okay? And I mean, what the greatest thing was to see people say, oh, I went with my mom. I was like, I hope your mom wasn't Dina. And everyone was like figuring out what character they were. But I think it was for women to really enjoy enjoy all facets of what it is to be a woman, like intelligent and smart, but also...
And flawed, very flawed.
Very flawed,
right.
Very flawed, and very, put upon to be perfect. You know what I mean? So,
especially your character too.
Yeah.
I think she carried herself with this sort of like the big career, the high-profile relationship, and to see that all sort of, not to spoil if you haven't seen it, but it becomes in peril toward the end, and to see how she sort of lifts herself up, I think is empowering.
And to show how, I think with reality television, I think sometimes we forget how supportive women really are of one another. Yeah. And they kind of have made us feel like, women, but women are incredible. I mean, I love my friends, the women in my life. They are paramount in like who I am as a person. So I think to have a movie that showed the depth of that friendship. And women like my friends from college, like, don't interview them.
Do they have stories to tell about you?
All my friends have stories. I mean, that's what close friendships are for women. Like we have.
And it feels like you never left. 20 years later, you're still you feel like no time has passed at all.
They deny people with me. They'd be like, did you date such and such? I'm like, mm-mm. And my friends are like, she didn't.
And tell me what kind of bond you forged with your castmates, because you all had such incredible chemistry, but I can only imagine how, leaving the movie, and you're making a sequel too, from what I know. You're carrying that with you. I can't imagine what a wonderful camaraderie that must have been.
It was crazy when we left. We were hanging, and we had really the four of us just met, except La, and it was so weird. It was really weird. We laughed every day. I mean, I was like, you all are, like, we just had so much fun. It was one of those things where, it was more than probably we expected. And, New Orleans was hot, and
it looked like a lot of fun.
It was so much fun. Like it really was. It was like hours of, and when the man came and put himself on the window, that day, I was so mad because my character didn't see it. because I was like, just tell me what it was like. and the guy was such a trooper. You know, the men in the movie were so great. You know what I mean? Good. They were great. They just allowed themselves to be objectified.
Allowed you to have the spotlight too, which was special.
Yeah, and they just came in and they were just joys to work with, and so it was a fun movie.
Well, I can't wait for the next one, whenever it may come. So tell me how Support the Girls came to you. Was this a script that your team brought to you, or did you connect with a filmmaker independently on your own? How did this project come to you?
Well, I was working at a Hooters. No, I'm joking.
I think you mean Twin Peaks.
Yeah, at Twin Peaks. No, I was in New Orleans shooting Girls Trip. My agent said, I want to send you a script, and the director's interested in meeting you, and he lived in Austin, and he's going to come down. And I read it, and I remember reading it, and like I was like, at that point I had read so many. I was reading scripts, and I was used to a studio presentation, so I was waiting. I was like, oh, this isn't what the money's for, or you know, like, oh, he's sleeping with her.
Right. It doesn't go the way you think it's going to go.
It doesn't go.
Right.
And I was like, oh, they're just people. You know what I mean? They're just...
It's like a snapshot.
It's just a snapshot. Good people. But I couldn't stop thinking about it in that kind of world. And I liked that it was different and it wasn't...
Did the tone of the movie, was it clear on the page? Sort of what ended up, you know, what we saw on screen, was that clear to you when you were reading? Okay.
Yeah, for me it was. The only thing, you know, I read it and then I met Andrew. But I thought I had the part. I didn't. I was over there talking. I was like, so when we start, he was like, and then my agent, I was like, did we get the offer? And he said, well, they're meeting with a few more people. Wait. I don't have the offer. And they're like...
And then you wanted it even more when you heard that.
Then I was like, what? And then, so when I got it, I was thrilled. But every time I read her, I heard an accent. I don't know why. I don't know.
And I was going to ask about your accent. Did you work with a dialect coach? Because you have a great Southern accent. And it feels very specific to Texas, too. It doesn't feel like a Georgia accent. It feels, the people I know from that area, that's what they sound like.
No, I don't know why. As soon as I read it, it came in my head. Like while I was reading it, I just kept hearing that voice and that accent. I don't know where it came from. I don't have it, but
was it on the page that she had an accent, or that was your own creation? Okay.
No, it wasn't on the page. It wasn't. Her race wasn't on the page, and neither was nothing about her. It just said Lisa. Wow. Her age was on the page. 40s. I was like. I mean, I am in 40s, but it's still. I was like, you done left everything else out.
She has a lot of wisdom.
You didn't have to put. You could have just put grown woman, and I would have been like, okay.
But then a 70-year-old woman might say, I'm perfect for this part. So you have to get specific a little bit. You're right. But I love, you know, not that Lisa couldn't be 30, but I think the motherliness and the support, I think it's sort of, I think it had to be sort of that age range. And obviously you brought a youthful vibe to the presentation.
No, you know, it's so funny because it's like I heard her voice and saw her and I was like, we need this wig. And then I was insistent on I was like, and I want the makeup put on with the fingers. Because I felt like she got up and did
her eyeshadow was intense.
Yeah, because I was like, she does this every day. And there is something to be said for people who wake up every day and they try. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You miss the mark.
Well, she's obviously a very proud person. She takes a lot of care in her appearance and professionalism.
Yeah, she wanted to match the girls.
Right.
Because I was like, can I wear the colors they wear? Because I was like, Lisa does not need to have on peach. But she did. You know what I mean? It was their little thing.
And how long was the shoot? I know it was a relatively small movie.
It was about 3.5 weeks.
Oh, okay. And did you take over an existing restaurant?
No, we took over a condemned one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there was
that works out.
Yeah, there was a restaurant, and so I'm telling you, it was right across from Twin Peaks. That was just really
wow. So would you go to Twin Peaks for lunch?
We went there for lunch every day.
So you would take notes and then come back and infuse them into your performance.
Well, we were just going there to eat by then because our crafty wasn't like amazing. So and Twin Peaks had really great food.
I love it. I hope they appreciated all the business that you brought over there.
They did. And you know what? We would go there and get some of our background. We had some extras from Twin Peaks too. Yeah.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. And then we'd get people like, can we try it? Because it was a big sign outside that said Double Whammies. So they were like, oh, there's a new restaurant. Let's try Double Whammies.
So did you have random people walking in?
Yeah, we would have people walk in and we'd be like, it's not real.
That is so funny. And as you've promoted this movie over the last few months, what's been a nice piece of feedback you've gotten from people, maybe women who work in those environments or people who've had those jobs as managers? Has someone told you you really captured the essence of that?
Some people who have been customers and some people who have worked there, they felt like they were it was really captured, you know, the vibe, the people. And I think for us it was just that, you know, we wanted to make sure that we were not stereotyping or criticizing anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like that we were really honoring, you know, what it is to whatever you do to walk in and do it with pride and, you know, and feel the need for respect and, you know, what it is like to have support in that environment. So for us, that was the biggest thing, is that, you know, it wasn't too
it wasn't Coyote Ugly, essentially.
No,
right.
No, right, yeah.
I feel like that movie was sort of like the, you know, the benchmark for, making women, you know, not giving them any dimensions in those characters.
Yeah. I think we wanted people to just feel like these were, you know,
and parents too. A lot of them have children.
Yeah,
and we saw with the little boy coming to work. You know, that's where you really start to realize, wow, these people have a lot on their plate.
I mean, you know, and especially now, you know, things are expensive and life is not. It doesn't always go as planned.
That is for sure. We can all agree with that. So we have a few great audience questions. I'll start with Aisha. Where's Aisha? Oh, hello. Aisha would like to know, and this was something I was planning to ask anyway, are you finding it difficult now to take on more dramatic roles now that you've done a lot of comedy over the years? And not necessarily difficult for you, but how casting directors and execs see you moving forward, especially with huge hits like Girls Trip, you know, on your resume.
No, actually, now, you know what, oddly enough, it's gone the other way. Because I was the straight person in Girls Trip, then people were like, does she do comedy?
They haven't seen Scary Movie.
Or like About Last Night. I mean, there's like 10 comedies. And then, but now I think it's gotten a lot easier to maneuver both, but it does take a long time. It takes, you know, probably my agents probably have the hardest time because they lie to me. They're probably like, yeah, they wanted to see you. They're probably like, please see her, please.
They do. There's a lot of magic behind the scenes.
There's a lot of magic and a lot of begging.
Pushing.
You know, I remember when I did this one movie, Law Abiding Citizen, with Jamie Foxx, and F. Gary Gray was like, Regina, from Scary Movie, yeah, like I know, but no, she's not right. And they were like, my agents, they were gangsters. I mean, they were getting people's cell phone numbers and doing stuff, sending stuff. But I remember the director, when I met him, he said, I just want you to know your agent harassed me every day. Did you look at her tape? Did you look at her tape? Did you look at her tape? And he said he looked at it just so he could finally get on the phone and say, yes, I looked at it. I don't want her.
Right.
But he looked at it, and then he was like, and I was like, oh, right, that is what I want. And then I got the job. So
that's a good agent.
Sometimes it's a team. It's your team behind you that really, they're the ones that push you. Like Andrew, who pushed me to do this movie. And then before this movie, I had done People, Places, Things, which is how, and then Andrew knew Jim Strauss.
Okay.
Andrew Wojcicki. So
that's a great movie. Another quirky indie.
Such a great,
Jermaine Clement.
I love Jermaine.
He's one of the funniest people alive.
I said, Jermaine, how are you from New Zealand with the name Jermaine? That's such a black name.
It's totally. I've always wondered about
Jermaine
this.
Clement is like a football player's name, right?
What did he say?
He said that, because I was like, you know? And he said his mother was a huge Jermaine Jackson fan.
Really?
He's named after Jermaine Jackson, and she forgot the R.
I know. Well, that's the thing. I always have to catch myself.
That
it's
is how
not
he
Jermaine.
Has that name. Is that not the craziest thing? I was like, so you do have, like, it's after a black guy. Yeah, he's named,
Oh my gosh. As if I didn't love him enough already.
With
That's
a brother,
amazing.
Tyrone. No, he doesn't. That's right. It's just Jermaine.
Oh, I love that. The next question's from Tyler. Where's Tyler? Hello. Tyler's disappeared. Tyler wanted to know if the character of Lisa is based on anyone in particular.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if he wrote it for someone who he made, but not for me. No, I just thought of, you know, women I know, or women in general, or points in my life where, you know, in life, one thing is happening.
Did you have any bosses or managers in your own professional experiences that you kind of drew from?
No, I wasn't a very good waitress. I don't think mine was a bad waitress. But I mean, I just think women. I just think there's something incredibly selfless about a lot of women I know. And, you know, I see women at home have this, and then still go out and give more, you know, to the point where they don't necessarily have it much left in them, but it just turns on where they innately feel like, I have this going on at home. You know, I've seen women like whose moms are sick at home with cancer, but they're at work and they're still like in this.
Can't help but give of themselves.
They can't help but give of themselves. So I think it's just thinking about women in my life who I know and who I have known.
I love that. And the last question is from Yvette. Where's Yvette? Hello. Yvette would like to know, and if you have any advice regarding maintaining good relationships with your agents and managers and your team, which it sounds like you have a good group of people behind you.
Yeah, I love my team. I think a big part of it is some people really get stuck on the agency they're at, and I never did. It's kind of like the person, because it's if the person who represents you has passion, no matter where they are, they're going to work hard. My agent, I remember when I went to him, we've been together a long time, and I was with a bigger agent, and I went with him, and she said, you just made the biggest mistake of your career. He's a junior agent. He won't get anyone on the phone. But you know what? He was hungry, and he was passionate, and he was just as grateful, you know, that a client would take the risk on him, with him. And so we've just become really good friends, and I love my manager and publicist, and you know, it takes that and a lot of prayer. And
it also helps too when each of you sort of coming of age in your respective fields, that you were hungry at the same time they were hungry.
True. And
you don't want to necessarily be with someone who's kind of jaded and been in the business 30 years and doesn't maybe understand how you're feeling as a, you know, you just want to get going.
Yeah. And you know, my agent is he's been at the beginning, and he knows what it takes just for an agent to make it, you know, because they have their own client, because everything for them is based on their client list. So, and I've gone to different agency with him. Actually, when I met him, he was my agent's assistant.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, he was just on the desk.
You can tell a lot about someone at that stage in their career, how they're going to be later.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is some of the hardest work a person can do.
It's so, and you know, those assistants are agents tomorrow. Be nice to the assistants.
Always be nice to those assistants.
They do so much work.
And they read a lot too. They read a lot of scripts for people.
A lot of them read, and they're smart. My agent had one assistant. She's going to be an agent by tomorrow. Phoebe is like, she's so good. I said, Andrew, you better watch her job.
It's a problem with bringing in a lot of talented people is that they rise up through the ranks.
But I just think, you know, and I don't call them and ask them what they're doing, because I'm like, well, they can't eat if I don't eat. So
that's a good point.
I guess we're all working, and I think you can feel that out. You can feel who's really fighting.
Well, we thank you so much for being here. Congratulations. Thank you guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for waiting.
Thank you. Very enthusiastic in the front row.